It is Sunday, the 23rd of October, 2016. I'm in front of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation, and I'm engaged in my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, which includes, but is by no means limited to, atheist Unitarian Universalists falsely accusing me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel, in other words blasphemy, in Bill Cosby style legal bullying that's intended to cover up and deny such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. So my unsafe sect picket sign predates the false blasphemous libel accusation against me by at least a decade, somewhat more than a decade for sure, perhaps as much as 15 years. Well, maybe not quite 15 years, but anyway, this is a reissue of a classic picket sign that I displayed as early as 1999, and it used to have a question mark. After sect, asking the question, is this an unsafe sect? Softening the blow a little bit. I mean, it was pretty much a rhetorical question, but it was a question. It's no longer a question, it's a statement. There's absolutely no question that Unitarian Universalism is unsafe to pretty much anyone who complains about clergy misconduct. It's unsafe in many ways, other ways as well. Pretty much anyone who complains about misconduct on the part of a Unitarian Universalist minister ends up being on the losing end of that equation. The minister is protected to the hilt by the Unitarian Universalist Association and the local church, except for those rare occasions where it's simply impossible to protect the minister because he did something of a criminal nature and it's in front of the criminal court or something. Even then, though, they basically up to the point that the minister is actually charged, they try very hard to protect the minister. I am quite certain that some Unitarian Universalist ministers who have broken state laws and so on have been protected, from actually even being charged. The church has, whisked them out of state and so on. So they totally protect the minister and they basically go after the victims. Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice sucks, you ask us you. Well, yes, it most certainly does. And the perversion of justice that I'm talking about is not limited to falsely accusing me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel to hide pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. Perversion of justice begins within the church itself. The church is supposed to practice justice within its own walls, and it does not do so. It perverts justice within the Unitarian Universalist religious community itself, but then it will actually go outside of the Unitarian Universalist religious community to pervert justice, such as falsely accusing clergy misconduct complainants of criminal acts in an effort to silence them and punish them and so on. And again, that's just one example of perversion of justice. There's actually all kinds of perversion of justice that goes on within the Unitarian Universalist religious community. Unitarian Universalist misuse blasphemy law. Oops, Sir Daisy, got the wrong side of the sign here. Cover up and deny pedophilia and rape. Yep, totally truthful statement. Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston hired Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel. That is, to falsely accuse me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in legal bullying that was clearly intended to conceal, if not outright deny, pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. And as far as I'm concerned, although ministers were the only people mentioned, it actually extends beyond that. There are Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers who are guilty of pedophilia and rape, and there are also Unitarian Universalist lay leaders who are guilty of pedophilia and rape, and essentially the Unitarian Universalist Association, even though they only specifically mentioned ministers in their accusation, inadvertently extended it beyond that, because the only Unitarian Universalist that I had described as a pedophile rapist up to that point in time was not even a minister. It was a lay leader, Richard Buell of First Parish Norwell in Massachusetts. So prior to being falsely accused of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, the only Unitarian Universalist who had actually described as a pedophile, and indeed a pedophile rapist, was Richard Buell, who, to the best of my knowledge, was never a Unitarian Universalist minister. So it was a bit of a glitch, one of many actually, in the Unitarian Universalist Association's false accusations against me. Nonetheless, even though only ministers were mentioned, when you're engaged in that level of intimidation, essentially threatening to have someone charged with a criminal act that carries a jail term of 2 years if convicted, if they don't shut up about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists and erase what they've already said, you're essentially trying to cover up everything. I could expect the same result from for talking about Sunday school teachers who are guilty of pedophilia and rape and so on. Richard Buell, as I said, to the very, very best of my knowledge, was not a Unitarian Universalist minister ever, just an ordinary lay person, probably taught a few Sunday school classes here and there. He was charged, tried, and convicted of the rape of preteen girls who were no older than 12 years old at the times that the rapes took place, which is why I called him a pedophile rapist. His victims included a neighbor's daughter and also a female family member. And when I say a female family member, it is because only one female family member was named, in the actual criminal prosecution. As I understand it, he actually raped or otherwise sexually abused other female family members, but those cases didn't get to court, partly because the statute of limitations had run out when they were reported. As I understand it, he had sexually abused at minimum, if not raped, his own daughters, and then when it came to light to the adult daughters that their own children, or at least one of their own children, was raped by their father, well then that was it for them, and charges were brought against Richard Buell. So although only one female family member was involved in the criminal trial where Richard Buell was convicted of forcible rape of preteen children, it's pretty clear from the other information that she was not the only female family member victim of Richard Buell. There were others, according to quite reliable information. So we're protesting in front of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation for a change. partly because it's the Eastern Regional Gathering of the Canadian Unitarian Council, and so there's a fair number of Unitarians, Canadian Unitarian Universalists, whatever they want to call themselves, Canadian U**Us, Canadian UUs here today. I see a fair number of Ontario license plates. See quite a few Quebec ones, obviously. So I'm expecting members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal to be here. I'm expecting members of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation to be here, obviously. Expecting members of the North Hatley Unitarian Universalist Church in the Eastern Townships of Quebec to be here. And I'm expecting, at minimum, Ontario Unitarian Universalists to be here, so members of the Ottawa Unitarian Universalist Church, I would presume. Possibly some Toronto Unitarians. I'm not sure about Unitarian Universalists from the Atlantic provinces, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and so on. I haven't seen any license plates from the Atlantic provinces. It's possible that the eastern region is, Quebec and Ontario, and that there's another maritime region or something. But in any case, the reason I'm protesting here today is because I want Unitarian Universalists, above and beyond Montreal Unitarian Universalists to be aware that the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston has falsely accused me of blasphemous libel in an effort to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, to borrow a couple of choice phrases from the arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letters that the Unitarian Universalist Association hired Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors litigation lawyer Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe to have me served with in June of 2012. And I can say that immediately after receiving those, the first letter was June 1st of 2012, Friday, June 1st of 2012. I responded to that letter by making it clear to Maitre Coulombe that, to the best of my knowledge, there were no unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engaged in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape on the Emerson Avenger blog. I made it clear to him that I was having considerable difficulty finding blog posts that matched that description, and asked him to properly identify exactly which blog posts he was talking about so that I could go and have a look and see what they said and decide, how I wanted to govern myself according to his, do govern yourself accordingly. Of course, in his mind, governing myself accordingly would be to take down and memory hole the blog posts, but he hadn't specifically identified which ones he was talking about. He spoke only in general terms, as I've already said. He didn't provide any titles, he didn't provide any URLs, didn't provide any dates or anything. He just said, your unfounded and vicious allegations, yada, yada, yada. So I told Maitre Coulombe, I can't find any unfounded and vicious allegations about pedophiles and rapists on my blog. You show me which ones you're talking about. And he came back with a second cease and desist demand letter that said, your claims not to be able to find the offending material are not credible, blah, 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 blah. In other words, he was saying I was lying when I said I couldn't find any blog posts that were unfounded and vicious, which is what I was saying. And so I had to explain to him that no, I know where I wrote about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists. I just don't know where the unfounded and vicious blog posts are. You got to tell me where the unfounded and vicious ones are. Where are the blog posts that have no foundation in fact? Where are the blog posts that are vicious? And I never heard from him again. I haven't heard boo out of Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors litigation lawyer since June of 2012. But he's heard from me. He's heard from me quite regularly, demanding evidence to support his bullshit accusation against me, demanding that he formally withdraw his bullshit accusation against me and apologize for it. And of course, UUA leaders have heard the same demands. Every letter that I wrote back to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe was CC'd to UUA President Reverend Dr. Peter Morales and the UUA moderators Jeannie Corder and Jim Key, the UUA Board of Trustees, and so on. So all top-level UUA leadership have been CC'd every letter I wrote to Maitre Coulombe, but on top of that, they've had letters addressed to them because they are responsible for hiring Maitre Coulombe and have made the same demands. The Unitarian Universalist Association must formally withdraw its false blasphemous libel accusation against me. It must publicly apologize for falsely accusing me of blasphemous libel, and it must tell the truth about just how many Unitarian Universalist ministers have in fact been charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Because it's very, very clear that it's trying to hide this. And in fact, I had discussions with UUA moderator Jim Key after he was elected in June of 2013. I had some email exchanges with him and one telephone conversation, and this was to discuss the overall situation of Unitarian Universalist clergy misconduct and UUA negligence and complicity therein.